thank you for tuning in to Conversations with Dr. Don. Now, for your first-time viewers, Conversations with Dr. Don is an ongoing series of one-hour standalone talk shows where I interview interesting people like most of you out there about who they are as unique, one-of-a-kind individuals and about whatever it is that we've decided to talk about. My two guests tonight for this show are indeed quite interesting and kind of diverse and broad-based. And Cameron Whitten over here.
Hey.
Is running for mayor
of Portland.
Of Portland, yeah. And Sean Savage, who is running. No.
Yes. Running to and running from.
Is an old friend of mine. He's a producer of television shows, and he's got a whole bunch of other stuff he's done in his life, and he's still doing. He's quite an interesting character in his own right. Just got back from China very recently after over 2 years there, stirring up trouble over there.
Yep.
Thanks for coming on the show, both of you again. As you know, the show goes in two major segments. The first segment is what I call the bio-personal part, where I talk to you about who you are personally. So the viewers have an idea where you're coming from when you have an opinion or some comment that you're making. And the second half is where we get into the substance of the show. We're talking about topical issues as of March 22nd, 2012. And there are so many topical issues, so we will select ones that seem most important to address right now, particularly what you'll be about in your candidacy for mayor of our wonderful city of Portland, and particularly about the stuff you got into when you were in China over there all this time. Is that okay?
Great. Sounds fun.
All right, so shall we pick on Cameron first?
Pick on me. Go ahead. I'm scared.
Good. If I were to ask your best friend, Cameron, who is Cameron Whitten, what would that best friend say? Cameron Whitten is?
I don't even know who my best friend is. That's a hard question. Man.
How about a good friend?
Good friend. Mm-hmm. Well, dude, Cameron, he's like legit, man. He's so funny. And he's so creative. Like, he's from the East Coast, dude. Man, Cameron, he's a smart guy. And he's always doing something. Like, every time you run into him, he's like going someplace or doing something. Like, that's what, yeah.
He doesn't try to hide what he's really about by doing a thing what you just did.
I was putting on a persona.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sure. So. You were born on the East Coast?
I was born on the East Coast.
And where's that?
Northern Virginia.
Northern Virginia. And when was that?
Well, I was born in 1991, and I lived there until I was 18.
Okay. And that means, how old are you now?
I'm 20 years old.
20 years old, and you're running for mayor?
Yes.
You got some big brass ones, you know that?
Brains, yes.
Yeah. Anything significant about your cultural or racial heritage that's worth mentioning for the viewers?
Well, I'm the only African American in the race, and Portland has yet to have a person of color be mayor, and they have never had a non-white majority in city council. And so it's definitely interesting knowing that there are 3 people of color running for each one of the seats. Is it possible for there to be diversity in Portland's government, knowing that our population is only becoming more diverse and is becoming less white? And so definitely my culture, knowing how I've been affected by being a person of color here in Portland, knowing how the history of Portland has always been economically, politically, and systemically oppressive to people of color, how can we change that dialogue, and how can we make sure that locally on this level people of color are being advocated for and do have a voice within their government?
Mm-hmm. Okay. Do you have a religious preference? By the way, if I ask you a question that you don't want to answer, you can say I don't want to answer that, okay? Do you have any...
I'm religious. My home church is the Unitarian Church.
Uh-huh. Was that your original religion, or did you have another religion?
I grew up Presbyterian.
I knew it. I'm a recovering Catholic, so I can recognize someone who's recovering from a previous religion. And your formal education, you're a student now?
I am a student on hiatus going to Portland Community College, doing full-time activism right now, learning about the world.
And how long have you been doing that?
Since October 6th, first day of Occupy Portland.
Oh boy. Yeah, you're impressive. Yeah.
I try.
So you were with the original Occupy Portland?
I was there from the first march.
Cool, excellent.
Yeah, I've been, ever since I came to Portland, I've been a full-time student, full-time activist, community activist, done a lot of volunteer work for many community organizations. At that time, I was doing food-based activism with Food Not Bombs, dispelling the myth of food shortage, knowing that corporations allow all this food to spoil so they can make a profit off of insurance. And so Food Not Bombs was definitely very involved with Occupy Wall Street. And so when word started trickling out over here, I just completely, got engaged with this incredible movement that was just starting. So
I'm curious as to how it is you've arrived at your views and your thoughts about things of real importance nowadays, but we'll get to that as
All right.
it unfolds. Yeah. Do you have a partner, a husband, wife, boyfriend, girlfriend, anything like that?
I have a wife, but she's complicated.
Is she as complicated as you?
Yes.
And what's her name?
polarized.
Can you say her name? That's okay?
Her name is Jessica.
Jessica.
Yeah.
All right. Say
Hey,
hello to
Jessica. She probably won't watch this.
Your political persuasion, do you see yourself as left, right, or center, or
I'm forward.
forward? Interesting. I've never heard someone characterize themselves as being forward. And the opposite of that would be backwards.
It could be backwards. It could be paralyzed. So, yeah, I'm not worried about going against, left or right. I'm mostly worried about what pushes us forward. And so I don't get into the whole tug of war that, left and right usually gets into.
You avoid that.
Yes.
Oh, interesting. Boy, refreshing, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah. And memberships in political, social, or civic organizations that are worth mentioning at your tender age. I'm 84 this year.
I did Model United Nations in high school. So, other than that, Occupy Portland's probably been the most politicized organizations I've been with in the past couple of years.
Mm-hmm. I want to see where you're at 5 years from now or 10 years from now. Promise me that you'll let me know.
I have my own nation of people.
I'd like to be a member.
All right.
Yeah. Refreshing.
Thank you.
Persons from the past or alive today that you looked up to, or admire today. Any names come to mind?
My idol, the person who keeps me going through this struggle, is Mohamed Bouazizi. He is the Tunisian martyr who immolated himself on the steps of the governor's building when he was being harassed by officers. And he's the one who basically catalyzed the entire Arab Spring movement, which has trickled across the entire world and is pretty much what allowed Occupy to transpire. And so when I think of Mohamed Bouazizi, here's this man who pretty much lost all his dignity and who understood the suffering that an individual endures because of power and oppression. And he was able to immolate everything of himself, which contributed to a complete change in global consciousness. And so whenever I go and do this trench work, because that's what it is, it's politics, being a 20-year-old minority who's treated like they have no opinion, it's oppressive, and it's horrible, and it's stressful, and it's traumatizing at times. And I think of Mohamed Bouazizi, and I immolate all of my negative energy. Every time I want to take a break, I want to go out on a date, I want to give up and just go off and do something selfish, which is mostly concerned about myself. I just burn that. I burn away the ego, and I realize that I have such a duty to the global cause and to human need, and that's why I continue to view him as an idol, and I hope that my life will be able to have such an impression on the world.
Interesting. Yes, powerful. Is Tunisian.
Yes.
Wow, how do you retain all this stuff? You're amazing.
Eat lots of vegetables.
Yeah.
And I'm vegan. Yeah.
Oh, you are?
I am vegan, yeah.
So, how do you see the mainstream media today? Is it left, right, or center?
Well, it depends on the region. That's definitely true. I think media does pick its bias. But, for example, in Portland, I would say it's left-leaning. But, if you're somewhere else, if you're down in Texas, it's probably more right-leaning media. Yeah.
for me, I think the media is more not telling anything. It's a waste of time rather than learning something. You know, it's sort of feeding the populace pablum in order to keep them subdued rather than really educating them, you know, in important things. You know, there's hundreds of things that are more important than a lot of the things you see on the news.
Yeah.
You know, I don't care about that dog or that, you know, the fluff stories that they have. So I agree with you,
Yeah.
you know.
It serves a purpose, the media. And what purpose does it serve?
It's not education. That's what he's saying.
Yeah, it's not education. It's not trying to educate and make the people more intelligent or give them knowledge. It's just keeping them happy.
So let's segue over to you now and talk about who you are personally.
Oh, I'm a nobody.
Mr. Nobody, when and where were you born?
I was born in St. Louis, Missouri, too many years ago.
Okay, too many years ago. And
I grew up in Omaha, so I had a fairly interesting childhood. You see, I lived sort of on the outskirts of Omaha, and so when I was young, there was cornfields all around me, you know, wide open spaces, places for kids to play, you know, little ponds that you can go to make boats. You know, I remember when I was young, I made a raft that I stuck in the pond and, you know, pulled all one summer around the pond. You know, it was a grimy pond, dirt with the, you know, leeches and stuff like that. But hey, I was a little kid, I enjoyed it. And when I was in high school, the city grew around me. So now I was in the middle of the city in a suburb. So, you know, the fast food joints, the movies, the women, you know. So I think I had a pretty good childhood. I didn't have to move my house. I didn't have to move to change scenery.
okay, I'm aware you didn't tell me when you were born. That's okay too.
Yeah.
But I got another question for you along the same lines. Why were you born?
Why?
Yes.
This is a family show, so I can't really talk about that.
I knew he was going to get me before it was over. Yeah. So what's significant about your cultural heritage, or are you just plain American white bread?
Well, first of all, I am the minority here, right?
Yeah.
In this room, I am the minority. So,
Okay.
which is fine with me, you know.
Good.
Part of it is, you know, I was living in China. I was a minority in China. And so for me, it's not really the color of the skin. It's the ideas and the thoughts that you give out to the world that's important. So for me, you know, when I was in college, I had many friends that were Asian, Indian, you know, people of color, and they were people to me. I mean, I didn't care, you know. I liked the Indian food, you know. You know, I liked the Chinese food. So for me, it's not the outward looks. It's what's inside and how they think. You know, if someone puts an emphasis on education, on justice, you know, on helping people, that's my goals and philosophies.
So what was your cultural heritage based on your family background? Would you end up with your white bread or your whatever? That's twice I've said that.
I'm multicolored.
The only issue I have with your philosophy is it doesn't take into account systemic oppression. And so, yes, it's great that we wish we could all be colorblind, but is every person of every color still going through the same thing? Is there equity going on?
Oh, and
so,
I agree with you. When I was in China, you know, everyone stared at me.
I
And
thought you were wealthy or something.
Yes, yes, and they treated me differently. And so I know what you're talking about, but no, I do not know what you're talking about.
Exactly.
You know, so I understand the concept, but I don't know I've never walked a mile in your shoes.
I'm glad that you understand that. Good.
You know?
Do you have a religious preference?
Yes and no.
That's the third time you won't answer a question. I'm aware of that.
Well, you see, to me, nothing's black and white, okay? Because
Who says everything is black and white?
many
lot of
people.
That's 4 times.
You're black and white. He's black and
A
white.
hard time jousting because his IQ is way the hell up here, and mine's about here, which is above the average. But I know he's so I know I'm going to lose in the end, but anyhow.
That's great. Okay, well, the thing is, there's something more than the human mind can understand. You know, there's spirits, there's ghosts, there's probability of anything beyond our comprehension.
Were you raised in a particular religion?
Yes, I was raised congregational. And then I've tried Jewish, Mormon, Buddha, Tao, you know, but none of them really gave me any answers.
Do you embrace any of those today?
No.
What do you embrace today by way of a religion?
There is no formal religion for me.
Oh, okay.
You know, I believe that I should be buried under a tree with a tree planted on me, no casket, you know, so my...
Sort of agnostic, kind of. Yeah.
He won't cop to that either.
Too much of a title. Yeah, I've been there.
Yeah.
I've been,
There's something
just
more.
spiritual.
I
You're
don't know
spiritual,
what.
yeah.
And I don't worry about it. It's
just
beyond my
agnostic.
comprehension. It's beyond my comprehension, and I don't worry about it. I just try to live the best life I can today. And if it's not enough, so that's it. If it is, great.
Isn't that agnostic?
Um,
Yeah. Layman's terms.
How about your formal education? Is it safe to talk about that?
Sure. I have a graduate degree in electrical engineering, a degree in computer science. When my mother got her PhD in social civic planning, and I read all her books. My father's an architect, so I read all his books. I read the encyclopedia when I was young. So I have a very large background of knowledge. I like to sort of consider myself a Renaissance person.
Why is it that you did not join Mensa?
Because they're a bunch of snobs.
Well, that's not very fair to make that sort of a generalization, is it?
Well, I had this boss, okay? And he met his wife on Mensa.
You can help me attack you. If
And
I love it. He's my
he
friend.
was, you know, he goes, I'm Mensa.
Is that how you said it?
Yeah, and I'm saying, and you know,
That's 5 times.
he never knew that, you know, what I was capable of. And so, you know, he always bragged on himself, and I'm saying, no, that's not what I want. You know, that's not me. You know, I would much rather fit in and be a normal person and relate to people as a friend.
You normal?
As normal as they not come. But, you know, I like to basically meet people and be on the same level as they are.
Which is digressing for a moment. You're a very bright young man.
Yeah.
Could be.
You're doing a showing on me now. So let's continue on, okay?
So that's about it for my education. I have no partner now. I'm looking for one. Let's see, I have children, 4 of them. They all did very good in school. I have a philosophy on raising kids that the first thing you need to do is you teach the child to be responsible. Not right and wrong, but responsible. Because right and wrong can change over time. You know, what was correct at one time is not correct at another time. Yeah. But if they're responsible, they'll always take the input of the social situation at the time and make responsible decisions.
I have some friends who would quarrel with your judgment.
I'm sure you would.
They say the first thing you should do is love that child.
Well,
Well,
Okay.
Was he trying to create a dynasty? It's different. Army of child soldiers.
thanks
So-
for letting me pick on you.
You know, no, love is something you give, not teach. And you said, what do you teach your child?
Ooh, that's him winning.
And your political persuasion, do we dare ask you that?
I am a progressive. Okay, here's the thing: is I believe in self-reliance and self-independence, but I believe there's a social contract between a person in today's society and society itself. I have made lots of money, but right now I'm unemployed. I'm just barely homeless. You know, I just found a home. You know, I'm broke. So at this point, in a true, you know, like in a true Republican / libertarian, screw him. You know, which is not right. You know, at a time I need help. There's also other people that need help that, you know, that they can produce as much as they can for help society.
Watch your language, okay?
Okay. So, you know, I'm part libertarian, I'm part progressive. You know, one of the things is I'm part communist. And the reason...
Wait a minute now. Not on my show you can't be a communist.
Well, the thing is,
Call the
I
feds.
lived in China, okay? And I saw how
It's that water.
how the globally acted. In America, companies compete against companies. In China, China competes against the world. And as such, because all their businesses are controlled from the central government, it's much more efficient. And what has capitalism taught us? Efficiency wins, right? So, you know, I'm not saying it's good for the people, but what I'm saying is China has a very efficient government, minus the corruption, and the concept of global communism will eventually win over the monopolistic corporatism of America.
Did you ask
Do you think the people are better off here or there?
There's more freedom in China than America,
Wow.
but the standard of living is better in America.
Interesting.
More
Interesting
freedom.
observation.
Unless you want to have kids.
Well, the thing is, because there's so many people, they don't mess with the laws aren't that important. If you do something bad, they'll haul you in. But if you just do little bad things,
Karma.
you know, like run red lights. Go ahead, run red lights. If no one's there, you know, it doesn't.
Did you answer my question about political persuasion?
Yes, I'm all over the map. You know, you know,
Ooh, sultry.
That's 6.
you know, I'm a progressive. I'm part progressive and I'm part libertarian. I'm part Tea Party. I'm part, you know, Republican. I'm part Democrat. So
You didn't say socialist.
I'm part socialist.
Okay. All right. How about memberships in political, social, or civic organizations? Do you have any memberships ongoing nowadays that the viewers would be curious about?
Not. Right now I'm campaigning for the legalization of hemp.
Twinkle. Hemp milk is delicious.
It is. It is.
Yeah.
Okay.
Save us so much money. It'd be a great commodity.
There's two things. There's hemp and marijuana, which to me is two separate things.
Completely different. Yeah.
Completely different. They're both. It's sort of like the difference between a pit bull and a chihuahua. Okay. You know, they're both dogs, but they're two different dogs, right?
Your analogies are as far as you are.
Maybe.
We're not too sure about
Possibly. Never pluck
So,
So let's keep moving on here.
Yeah.
Persons from the past or alive today that you like, you admired.
the two people that I like is Thomas Jefferson and Sun Zhongshan.
Who's that second dude?
He is basically the father of China before Mao. He basically created the 1911 revolution from the Manchus, and he was a socialist. He believed in democracy. I mean, his views match yours very closely right now. And, you know, he believed in the power to the people. He believed people needed to decide their own rule.
How'd you learn about him?
Going to China?
Well, in China, Zhongshan means middle mountain, okay? And in many, many places I went to China, I said, boy, there's a lot of middle mountains in China because so many streets are named Zhongshan in China. I'm saying, how can there be so many middle mountains in China? And then I saw a movie, Bodyguards and Assassins and Bodyguards. Assassins and Bodyguards. And it was about him coming to Hong Kong to have a meeting. And then I was learning Chinese at the time, and it was in Chinese, so, but I understood about 10, 20% of the words and about 40% of what was going on. So then I started reading about him, and I became very impressed with him. And in fact, my Chinese name, my Chinese family name is Sun, which is his family name. It's also the family name of the Monkey King, Sun Wukong. And the Monkey King, if you're in China, is a mythical creature who always played tricks on people, who was always a little mischievous.
He tells us all kinds of stuff. We have no idea if he's telling the truth or not, so just take it with a grain of salt.
I think he's already started speaking Chinese.
我很高兴见你.
Oh, God, I'm sorry.
Getting out of here.
So I did learn Chinese over there, and so I can speak. 我说中文还可以.
Haiku.
What's your future in employment?
I have no idea. I'm looking for a job. I have like I said, I've done Android development. I've done cloud development, web applications. I have a very large technical background. I'm looking for a CTO/Linux computer architect. So that's sort of what I'm looking for right now.
And with that, I think we're going to listen to the control room for a change and take a break. We'll be back in a few minutes. Let's put up some panels here to show that we're on break. not officially on there. We're back again. Thanks for staying tuned. Now, for you viewers who missed the opening of the show, Conversations with Dr. Don is an ongoing series of standalone one-hour talk shows where I interview interesting people like most of you out there about who they are as unique, one-of-a-kind individuals and whatever it is we've decided to talk about. And tonight we'll be talking about most anything that could occur under the sun because of my two guests here, Cameron Whitten, who is running for the mayor of our wonderful city of Portland, and Sean Savage, who's, I don't know how else to describe Sean besides far out, and my dear friend for years. So let's pick up where we left off. But first, I've been wanting to ask you, and I've been forgetting to ask you, what are all those buttons about? What are you, some sort of a
activist?
Activist.
Yes. We don't hear about them much anymore. Yeah, I've got lots of opinions on everything. And so people will be able to know who I am. They'll be able to recognize and see my stances on things. My favorite one actually says, wearing buttons is not enough, if you can read that. So, yeah, some of them occupy, I'm a shameless agitator, save the Postal Service. This is a demonstration outside of New Seasons. You know, they fired one of the workers.
Yeah.
Jobs justice. So, yeah, this shows who I am. And I actually have the buttons of my competitors here on my jacket. I'm a man about unity. Yeah.
How did you arrive at how and who you are today at 20 years old? You seem so rounded and such depth to you, and I don't polish the apples very, very much.
So, very traumatized individual. I had an abusive childhood. My father was pretty abusive, and he had the Child Protection Services called on him twice, but it was because of my brother. The education system, they didn't really care. I used to cry all the time as a kid and be over tiny things, and they just labeled me as a crybaby. And I remember my mom, she didn't take a lot of responsibility for it. Eventually, my father, had us move out of our home in Northern Virginia, and we went around 30 minutes south of where we were. And within that year that we moved, it was all his idea, my mom and dad divorced. And the reason for that was because he was actually having an affair with my godmother. And so a woman who I knew my entire life, who was, entitled to be, the second person to, be my guardian in case something happened to my family, my father was with this woman. And so I remember it was during that time that we just had, it was catastrophe. And it was probably one of the most tumultuous times in my life, even though my entire life has been tumultuous. That was really bad. I was very confused, doing a lot of healing from all the abuse that I after my father was out of my life. That's when I started realizing, how much of my childhood was stolen from me. And it didn't really help seeing how my entire reality was changing under my feet at the same time. And so that was going on. And then eventually my mother remarried with somebody who she knew from back in high school. And I was a antisocial teenager. My mother liked to tell me that I treated her like a stepmother, and it was mostly because I would call her mother, and I wasn't very happy at all. And she always felt like she was a victim, even though I was the person who had been emotionally and physically abused for most of my entire life. And so I wasn't very ambitious as a kid. I was very internalized, didn't have many friends, and yeah, I just mostly spent my time eating, playing video games, things like that. And it pretty much got to a point where I knew that my life wasn't getting anywhere. And I'd call my mom mother, and she talked to me on the phone, and she said that she wasn't going to do anything for me anymore if I kept calling her mother. And at that point, I realized that I wanted to get emancipated, and I stayed with my friend for about 7 months. This was my senior year of high school. And I stayed with my friend for about 7 months, and that ended up going back into a realm which it was like time traveling, because at my friend's house, it was a large family. I think there was, 3 adopted kids, 2 kids that the mom and the dad had together, and then there was 2 kids that the mom had with her previous husband. And so it was just this huge family of people, and the father was very abusive to the adopted kids, but he played favorites with the kids that were his, and the other 2 were so old that he didn't even mess with them. And so it was once again, a lot of trauma, a lot of that, feeling that I had. And I was just as helpless because I was a guest in another person's home. I didn't know what to do. And I ended up becoming a little truant. And after that whole situation, the mom in that situation contacted my mom, and through that I ended up going back home, and I finished school, got an IB diploma. I actually started doing a lot more extracurricular stuff once I ended up leaving my house, and I was doing Model United Nations, and I was doing all this service stuff now that I had that break and I was able to heal some. But I got back to my mom's house with her new husband, and after school ended, it was pretty much a month afterwards, and she basically threatened to kick me out, and they were taking pictures of my room, and they were telling me that I don't have a job, I'm not supporting the household, I need to get out. And so I ended up going into a pyramid scheme because I was so freaked out. I didn't know, I've never, been, self-sufficient before, and I was like, I'm gonna live on the streets. I was scared. Joined a pyramid scheme. It was awful. And after that, went to canvassing, and then she was demanding paychecks before I even got my first one. And pretty much, I ended up getting a scholarship when I was still at my friend's house because I was registered as homeless because I didn't have anybody paying for anything, and I really didn't have a support base anymore. And I was able to get a Rotary scholarship, and I was going to be able to have a really good amount of my first year of college being paid for. Mm-hmm. The problem was when I was at home back with my mom, she had stopped buying groceries, she had turned off the phone, there was no Wi-Fi that I could use, and she expected me to get a job. I couldn't do it. We lived in the suburbs. There was no place around for me to get a job at, and I didn't have the amenities. I didn't have a cell phone. I didn't have a driver's license. It was impossible. And so when it came about the time for school to start, I hadn't registered for classes. I had a lot of money and a scholarship, and I wasn't registered for classes. I could not even Google anything. I could not buy my books. I could not get to the community college. I was stranded in an island, and I had a friend who knew how to hack computers, and he gave me a program to try to get Wi-Fi. And when she found out about that, she told me to get out. She told me I was being kicked out. And it was just another tumultuous time in my life. I self-destructed. I ended up staying with a coworker. And we went back about 3 days later to get my things. And when my coworker went to talk to my mom, she basically denied everything. She was just like, oh, I didn't really mean it, that he had to leave. He was just making that up. It was an over-exaggeration. I really didn't mean that. He can stay. And my coworker ended up getting mad at me. And I realized at that point, I've been through too much. My life's not going to get anywhere if I stay where I am. And I decided to use all that I had in savings to just get as far as the way possible to California and start my life over there. I intended on joining the National Guard. It was my last resort that I was thinking of. And through a road trip that I had with my friends, I went to Kansas. I'm going into a very long story about how I got here.
It's okay.
So my friend was in Kansas. She almost was sexually assaulted by her boyfriend. So she decided that she wanted to leave and go to Oregon with a friend that she knew. And so I decided, hold on, I'm going to buy a bus ticket to Kansas. We're just going to road trip. You're going to leave me off in California. And through that whole experience, I realized that I really had so many more opportunities that I could do out here on the West Coast, and I didn't need to join the Army. And so we went to Oregon together, and from there it just got more dramatic. They both had really colorful and complicated backgrounds, and it didn't lead to a really good mixture. There was a lot of fighting going on, and we were not compatible. And so we were in Salem at the time when this happened, and one of the people that we were staying with told me that if I wanted to start off new all by myself independently, I should go to Portland. It's a good place to start off fresh. It has services and there's direction there, and that's pretty much what happened. I decided that I really needed to be for real with myself this time and try a brave new world. I'm gonna go cheesy. At that point, I realized that I keep trying to find my presence and find my identity with other people, but I haven't found it with myself yet. And so that's when I decided I just need to go to Portland and I need to get my stuff figured out. And so that's how I ended up here. That's where my political philosophy comes from. I've just been through so much pain, so much trauma. I do not wish that upon anybody else.
How did you get your political philosophy from all that turmoil?
It was just a cycle of abuse. And I realized that power and oppression affects people, and then you might be a victim of it. Doesn't mean that you will become a compassionate person. It might just steer you in the other direction. And I realized how much it affected me. I knew that I did not want to replicate that, and so it would scare me to know that if I had been survivor of beatings, would it lead me to beat other people? If I had a lying, manipulated mother, would I lie and manipulate other people? These are things that I don't want to replicate, and I want to be able to make sure that we all are treated as human beings and we are all recognized for all the trauma that we all have. And I want to be able to heal other people because it helps me heal myself.
Is your biological dad and your mom very intelligent?
Good question. I would say yes. Very intelligent. My father did not go to college, and my mom went to community college.
Mm-hmm. And how long have you been in Portland now again?
3 years.
3 years. Are you grounded here in Portland?
I'm running for mayor here,
Of course.
Must be staying here for a little bit.
Are you glad you came?
Yes. It's definitely the place where I should be. Whenever I try to travel other places, within 2 weeks, I get sick of it and want to come back to Portland. In terms of equity, there definitely does need to be a lot more in terms of being progressive and being welcoming to people of color. But I definitely feel that the values that are here, Portland made me vegan. Portland made me love bikes. Portland turned me into a yogi. Portland's done so many things that's really refined, what I love and who I am as an individual. I can't get that anywhere else.
Renaissance man at 20 years old.
Yes, very good.
So you're going to continue your formal education?
If it's necessary. I have so much that I have on my plate that I want to get done. There's so much in terms of social justice and making a movement that actually affects society that school might not be a part of that category.
Will you be able to achieve some political position of recognition without a college degree?
We'll see during the primary. If I get over 10% in this primary, it might not even be necessary. I definitely have been able to consult with people who are already in elected offices, a lot of the county commissioners and city commissioners. I'm already talking to these people, and I've been talking to state representatives. And so I know these people. And so I definitely have the education. It's just not written on paper.
I'm not talking about your ability and what you're about here and here also. I'm talking about what the authorities, the powers that be, will do when it comes to time to put up or shut up. And I'm showing my bias for education, of course.
Education is very important, but does our educational institution promote education, or does it promote knowledge, or does it promote something else? And so I'm talking about, am I getting what education is supposed to be giving to us? Because we see how we keep losing funding for our system. What is the priority in it? And now we're going to deep philosophical about the importance of education. I think we both agree about the importance of education. I think you wanted to come from what is deemed as the authority, what I might perceive not to be the ultimate authority of knowledge.
And the authority is the people who will decide whether or not you are worth considering for a position of mayor or congressperson or senator or something like that. So it's a bit of a challenge of a question. And will you come back on in the future? You're fascinating.
Thank you. Yes.
Will you?
Yes.
Okay, good. What else can you say? No.
Well, one of the things that I think
ahead,
about education is that I have a college degree, and college degree gave me two things: how to learn and the ability to put up with bureaucracy crap. I mean, if you make it through college, that in itself says that you can deal with the stupid instructors, you can deal with all the bureaucracy and hassles college throws at you.
If you make it through a political campaign, you get to learn how to deal with stupid instructors and all the red tape and bureaucracy.
Yes, very good.
So let's go over to Sean for a bit here. Thank you for trusting me and trusting us with those innermost things that went on in your life. Yeah. You're a very delightful human being.
You said earlier about a greenwashing.
Greenwashing.
I want to know what that is.
Okay, so basically it's all doing with marketing, and so you'll have entity. Will not name any entities, such as what I'm running for, and they will have something that's really good about them, such as being environmental.
Right.
And so something else might be bad. Say, for example, we have really bad roads, or our education system is probably one of the lowest in the entire country. But then you greenwash it by saying, this is where you come if you like trees or if you like sustainability. This is the great thing. Light rails everywhere. And so you greenwash over all your other problems. It's overcompensating.
Okay, I understand.
And that's the image that you present for the general population.
Okay, okay.
Greenwashing, yeah.
Greenwashing. Okay, that's
Or astroturfing, another word.
Yeah. Okay, that's an interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
So, will you want to talk some more about your adventures in China or whatever else comes to
Well,
mind for you?
To me, China has basically, the Chinese government has helped the Chinese people quite a bit. Now, one of the things that I think is America is moving much more like China, and China is moving much more like America.
Interesting.
In the future, I see that there'll be very little difference between China and America.
That's a profound statement.
I know.
The reason for this is like the NDAA, the National Defense Authorization Act. Okay, the copyright people putting on ACTA and SOPA and PIPA and all these things, where they want to block the web. Now, the only difference between China is China blocks things against the government. America blocks things against money.
Yeah.
Okay, there's still censorship. It's just what they have importance on.
Things against the rich.
Yeah, yeah. The one thing good about America is the American system was designed that we don't trust our leaders. So there was checks and balances, okay? In China, there are no checks and balances. And that's one of the problems, is that, and there's even 3 parties in China. They're all communists, but there's 3 parties.
Okay.
There is the corporate ones that want, say, just like the Republicans that say, if we spend money on business, give tax breaks to businesses, they'll create jobs. But their concept is to improve the power of China. Okay, that's their goal, which is an admirable goal. They want to make China a very powerful nation. The next group is like the quasi-democrats saying, oh, we believe the people. Not as much as, and they're about this democratic as our Democrats,
Yeah, it isn't very democratic.
Yeah, right. And then there's the Maoists saying that we should go back to the traditional communism. So there's really 3 parties in.
It's better than 2.
In China,
Including another cultural revolution?
they're thinking, in fact,
Maoists?
What may happen is there may be another cultural revolution coming up.
Wow.
China has been loaning money to many countries, right? And doing very, coming out of its shell and doing many things. But internally, many of the local governments have borrowed heavily. And that debt is a little bit flaky. So
Who did they borrow from? The central government?
the banks. So that creates issues internal because what they've done is they've been taking land from the farmers and selling it. And that's how the local governments get a lot of money. But there's new laws preventing that anymore. And so there's going to be some issues in the future in China. I still think it's a wonderful place, and the national government has done a good job of trying to help the people. The local governments have been a little more selfish, which is, you know, you brought this up about the people of Portland, the powers to be at Portland are more developer friendly, you know, than people friendly type of thing, you know. So it's sort of the same way here.
Do you want to go back to China?
Yeah. I think the food is great. The food in China is fresh vegetables, quick fried or steamed, spicy or not spicy, whatever way, but it's fresh vegetables. Here, the amount of processing food takes is immense, and the amount of meat eaten by Americans, you know, when I first got back, I gained 15 pounds. I mean, huge amount, because the food was just so. I was used to going out and having a small, you know, rice and vegetables, and, you know, having well-rounded meals every day. But I got back here and I tried to buy vegetables, and they are expensive. So I'm still trying to work out an eating arrangement for me. You know, I found this one thing where I take rice and put frozen vegetables and frozen chicken on top. You know, cook the rice, mix it up, add a tomato sauce, spices, and it's sort of a all-in-one, all in the rice cooker.
Ew.
No, it's really
in the
pretty
rice
good.
cooker. That's weird.
Yeah, yeah. I cooked the rice in the rice cooker and steamed the vegetables above the rice.
Oh, okay.
So I cooked
After it's cooked.
No,
Okay.
no, while it's cooking.
Oh.
So that the vegetables are steamed.
Oh yeah, I know what you're talking about.
You know.
Yeah.
And then, you know, pour it in and mix it up and add diced tomatoes and spices, and turns out pretty good.
Okay.
And I eat for, you know, one batch probably costs $7, and 4 people can eat it and get filled.
Let me pop you a few questions before
Sure.
we have to stop. Is the American empire crumbling
Yes.
or diminishing?
Yes, very much so.
What do you think?
Do I think the American empire is crumbling?
Yes. Do you think?
The dollar is becoming more shaky, and I know there's talk about people no longer using the dollar. And so, yes, I see that there are other states being more autonomous nowadays. So, yes, the American empire is crumbling.
What's going to replace the crumbling American empire when it crumbles?
Hopefully nationalism.
No, I don't want nationalism. I want localism.
That's what I mean, though. I meant other places being national. Sorry.
Okay. There's a book called The Foundation. And if you read it, it talks about the crumbling of this huge empire. And you'll see so many similarities between what they talk about the crumbling of the empire and what's happening in America now. You know, roads are getting a little bit longer to get fixed. You know, things are taking a little bit longer to get fixed. You know, and pretty soon they're going to take a little bit longer.
Yeah.
And so these are the little hints that are telling you that America is crumbling. You know, did you know right now
Isn't that the recession?
the amount of education for engineers and scientists has reached a plateau? We're no longer adding scientists, and most of the scientists are above 40. Engineers are above 40. So you're going to see a huge drop-off in science and engineering people.
They're yelling at me in the control room. Final thoughts, comments about anything that's gone on here tonight since we've been together, anything we've talked about, about 20 seconds or so, 20, 30 seconds.
Yes. Legalize hemp. How's that? Quick enough?
Sure.
Okay, right now there's petitions out there. Sign the petition. Get it on the ballot. Even if you don't believe in it, shouldn't the people of Oregon be allowed to vote on it?
Yes.
All right, so please be in touch with my website. It's CameronWhittenForUnity.com. I'm advocating for systemic change where we actually increase democracy within our government, because right now there's so many people whose voices are not being heard. Let's try to change that.
Thank you. So it's close to time for us to stop visiting and get ready to say good night. Keep your pens and pencils handy because you may want to jot down something that we'll show you in the closing credits. I got to tell you about getting my broadcast schedule. To get the Dr. Don local broadcast schedule, go to my website, www.donbaham.com, and click on Present Day Activities. And next, I want to tell you about getting Dr. Don shows on the web. To watch my shows on the web, go to www.donbaham.com and click on Favorite Links this time, and you can see, maybe 200 shows that I've made over the years. I think you'll enjoy yourself. I hope you. Now I got to tell you about the ACLU. Don't get mad at me because the ACLU has made another blunder, as it does about every 20 years or so, with the Citizens United thing that has corporations with unlimited monies to buy politicians. The American Civil Liberties Union protects our civil liberties. Basically, that's what it's about. Without the ACLU, I think our civil liberties would be worse off than they are now. Now, what else can I tell you about? To get Dr. Don Show's broadcast by other stations in the country, ask your local public access station to go to www.pegmedia.org, www.pegmedia.org, and they can then get my TV shows and broadcast them in their local jurisdictions rather than going to the internet through my website. And corporate personhood. Oh man, we got to have corporate personhood has to be abolished so that our country can go back to being owned by the ordinary citizen, by people, by we the people. Yeah, go to www.movetoamend.org so we can amend the Constitution to eliminate corporate personhood. And now it's time to say goodnight. Thanks for watching, and remember KFC.
Kind.
Not Kentucky Fried Chicken. Kind, friendly, and charitable. Be kind, be friendly, and be charitable to you too. And you, and you, and you. Good night.